Hi, welcome back to Season 5, Episode 5 of Everyday NLP Bites. And Season 5 I've entitled, What Are You Saying? Because my focus this time round is on language and becoming aware of the language that we're using. If you've not been watching or listening to earlier podcasts, my name is Florence Madden. I'm an NLP trainer and coach based in Cumbria in the north of England. I'm also the author of The Intention Impact Conundrum and the co-author of Everyday NLP. So as I restart this season of podcasts, first of all, I hope you've had a lovely Christmas and a happy new year in spite of what's happening with lockdown and everything else. So through this series, I have been looking at language and how the language that we use reflects to some degree what we're thinking. And of course, the language that we use also influences our thinking. It's a two-way street. And of course, the language that we use also influences other people. My focus in this episode is something called presuppositions, where our language indicates that something is true. So if you take a simple 4-word sentence like the horse ate the grass, even that is packed with presuppositions. It presupposes that the horse exists. It presupposes that there's grass there. It presupposes that you know or have witnessed that the horse ate the grass, which might also presuppose that the horse was alive at that point. And that's only 4 words. Even if you take my greeting at the start of this podcast, I said, welcome back. That presupposes that many of you have actually watched or listened to earlier podcasts. I also wished you had a happy Christmas and a happy new year. That presupposes that those events have just happened since my last podcast, and it presupposes that those should be happy events. So it's really difficult to say anything without making certain presuppositions. And generally speaking, that's okay when those presuppositions are beneficial to us in some way. But sometimes the things that we presuppose, you may say the things that we assume, can actually be limiting our choice, or perhaps limiting the choice of others, and perhaps even impairing our relationships with other people. Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist and social scientist, said this: science, like art, religion, commerce, wealth, warfare, and even sleep, is based on presuppositions. So it's hard to function without presupposing something. We need to be wary of what those presuppositions are imposing, perhaps, on ourselves or on other people. And if they're not, then questioning them. Who says? How do we even know that that's true? How do we even know those are the only choices that are available to us? In preparing for today's podcast, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and she asked me how I felt about doing podcasts. And I said, well, some days I just do them and it's a oneer. I do it in one take. There are relatively few mistakes in it, and therefore that's okay. Other days when I make some mistakes, perhaps right at the beginning, that can lead me to make mistakes the second time round, and perhaps there have been up to 7 takes before I'm actually satisfied. And I realized in that moment that when I started making mistakes, that led me to presuppose that I was going to do it again and again. So our language influences our thinking. It influences the opinions that we hold about ourselves or other people or about a situation. So they're well worth questioning. Also, when I was thinking about this podcast, I started thinking about some of the other presuppositions that I've come across in my life. And I went back as far as when I left university and I was being interviewed by an international accountancy firm to join them as a trainee accountant. Now, I'm not sure accountancy would have necessarily been the right thing for me, but the interviewer asked me, how did he know that I wouldn't leave them in 10 years' time to go and have children? Well, even then, that was a pretty dodgy question and probably not one he was asking of male candidates. But the presupposition was there, or the presuppositions, plural, were there, that first of all, as a woman, I was going to have children and that I would probably take, if I did, have full childcare responsibility and would take time off work or possibly not even come back. So a lot of presupposition is at the basis of sexism and racism and other forms of prejudice as well, because it's presupposing that certain things are true or inevitable. On a lighter note, when I'm talking about presuppositions, particularly to people that are parents, they go, well, do you know what, Florence, sometimes presuppositions can be incredibly useful. So a typical thing that people might say to their children is, well, do you want to do your homework first or tidy your room first? That's a presupposition. It presupposes that the child has two choices to do one or the other. So whether the child would see it that way or not, I believe there's a good intention that sits behind that. Nonetheless, the parents concerned are fully aware of the presupposition that they're setting before their child. And as they probably doing that for good reasons. So presuppositions, when they go unrecognized and unchallenged and have a negative connotation, can really be limiting. It can limit our choices. It can limit the way in which we approach things in life, and it can certainly affect our relationships with other people. So it's good to notice those presuppositions, to check those out and see, are they true or are they serving me? And in whose opinion are these true? So I want to finish today on a quote from Kenneth Boa, who's an evangelical author and speaker. And he said, our presuppositions shape our perspective. Our perspective shapes our priorities, and our priorities shape our practice. So just watch out for, what are you presupposing? Is it true? Is it serving you? So thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. You can find out more about the courses that I offer, not just in NLP, but on the whole range of management skills on my website, which is www.florencemadden.co.uk. And I hope you'll join me next week for another language pattern. For now, thank you for watching or listening.